Welcome to UBI Unplugged, breaking down the future of income.
Hey everyone, really excited to dive into this topic today. It feels like UBI and financial literacy are more relevant than ever, especially with everything happening in the world.
Yeah, relevant maybe, but let's be real. Future of income sounds a bit utopian to me. I'm still not convinced UBI is anything more than a pipe dream.
Well, I think it's worth exploring seriously. The pandemic really exposed how fragile people's financial lives are. And with automation looming, we need to think about how people will survive in the future job market.
Exactly. And it's not just about survival, it's about opportunity. Imagine a world where people have the breathing room to pursue education, start businesses, or contribute to their communities without being constantly stressed about making rent. That's the promise of UBI.
Okay, opportunity is nice, but where does the money come from? It's not like money grows on trees. Higher taxes, more government debt, and what about inflation? Won't that just eat away at the value of the UBI?
Those are valid concerns, definitely. Financing is a huge challenge. We could look at things like a progressive tax system, closing tax loopholes, even a land value tax. But we also need to think about the potential cost savings from streamlining existing welfare programs. UBI could potentially replace some of them.
And think about the economic stimulus. People with more disposable income are more likely to spend, which boosts demand and creates jobs. It's a multiplier effect. And yes, inflation is a risk, but it can be managed with smart monetary policy. It's not an insurmountable obstacle.
Smart monetary policy? From this Congress? I'll believe it when I see it. Besides, even if you can manage inflation, what about the work ethic? People will just sit around and do nothing. Why bother working if you're getting a free handout?
That's a common criticism, but the evidence from pilot programs suggests otherwise. Most people continue to work, either full-time or part-time. UBI provides a safety net, not a disincentive to work. It allows people to take risks, to negotiate for better wages, to leave dead-end jobs.
Absolutely. And it empowers people. Think about those Trump voters who feel betrayed, who feel like the system has left them behind. UBI could be a way to directly address their economic anxieties and restore some faith in the system. It's not a perfect solution, but it's a damn sight better than what we're doing now.
Okay, you're painting a rosy picture. But what about the logistical nightmare of implementing this thing? Who's in charge? How do you prevent fraud? What about people who move from state to state? The devil's in the details, and I haven't seen any convincing details yet.
You're right, the implementation is complex, but we have the technology to do it. Digital wallets, blockchain, even existing government infrastructure. We need a clear regulatory framework, strong oversight, and a commitment to continuous improvement. It won't be perfect from day one, but we can learn and adapt as we go.
And that's where financial education comes in. If people are receiving a UBI, they need to know how to manage it effectively, how to budget, save, invest, avoid debt. We need to integrate financial literacy into our education system, from elementary school to adulthood.
Financial literacy? You mean teaching people how to be good little consumers, because that's what most financial education is these days. It's not about building wealth, it's about maximizing your credit card rewards.
That's a fair point. We need a different kind of financial education, one that focuses on critical thinking, responsible decision-making, and long-term financial planning. It should also be culturally relevant and accessible to everyone, regardless of their background or income level.
Exactly. And personalized learning is key. Not everyone learns the same way. Some people prefer online courses, others prefer workshops, others prefer one-on-one coaching. We need to offer a variety of resources to meet people where they are.
So, you're going to teach people how to invest their UBI. In what? Crypto? Meme stocks? Sounds like a recipe for disaster. Most people don't have the knowledge or the risk tolerance to play the stock market.
We're not talking about encouraging reckless speculation. We're talking about teaching people the basics of investing, like diversification, compound interest, and long-term goals. Maybe even encouraging them to invest in low-cost index funds or socially responsible investments.
And it's not just about the stock market, it's about investing in themselves, investing in education, skills training, or starting a small business. UBI can provide the seed money and the security to take those risks.
Small businesses? Most small businesses fail. And skills training? Most of those programs are scams. People end up with a worthless certificate and a pile of debt.
Again, valid concerns. We need to ensure that skills training programs are accredited and aligned with industry needs. And we need to provide resources and support for aspiring entrepreneurs, like mentorship programs and access to capital.
And think about the impact on innovation. If people have the financial security to pursue their passions, they're more likely to come up with new ideas and new solutions to our problems. UBI could unleash a wave of creativity and entrepreneurship.
Okay, innovation is great, but what about the people who are already struggling? The people who are working two jobs just to make ends meet? Will UBI really help them? Or will it just create more bureaucracy and red tape?
It could significantly improve their lives. Imagine a single mother working two minimum wage jobs. A UBI would provide a guaranteed income floor, allowing her to work fewer hours, spend more time with her children, and invest in her future.
And think about the impact on communities of color who have been disproportionately affected by economic inequality. UBI could be a powerful tool for closing the wealth gap and promoting racial justice. It's about creating a more equitable and just society for everyone.
All right, I get it. You guys are sold on this UBI thing. But I still have serious doubts. It sounds good in theory, but I'm not convinced it will work in practice. And I'm especially worried about the unintended consequences.
And that's fair. It's important to be skeptical and to ask tough questions. But we can't let fear of the unknown prevent us from exploring new solutions to our economic challenges. We need to be willing to experiment, to learn from our mistakes, and to adapt as we go.
Exactly. It's not about blindly embracing UBI as a panacea. It's about engaging in a thoughtful and informed conversation about the future of work and the future of our economy. It's about creating a society where everyone has the opportunity to thrive.
Thrive, eh? I guess we'll see. But I'm still keeping my fingers crossed that someone comes up with a better idea.
And that's totally valid, Otto. We need to keep exploring all options. But thanks for pushing back and keeping us honest. It's important to have these tough conversations.
Yeah, Otto, thanks for keeping us grounded. It's easy to get caught up in the idealism, but the devil's always in the details. But I still believe UBI is a promising path forward, and I'm excited to see how it evolves in the years to come.
So, shifting gears a bit, I've been reading a lot about how Trump's economic policies are impacting different communities. Have you guys seen the recent articles about the situation in Philadelphia, particularly the Black community? It seems like some voters who initially supported him on economic grounds are now regretting that decision.
Absolutely. That disillusionment is a symptom of a deeper problem, economic inequality. People are grasping for solutions, and when promises aren't kept, the backlash is inevitable. UBI could be a direct response to that kind of economic pain.
But isn't that a bit simplistic? To assume that UBI is the answer to everything that Trump voters are upset about? Maybe they're concerned about other things, like immigration or cultural issues.
It's not the only answer, but it addresses a core concern, economic insecurity. And if people feel more secure, they might be less susceptible to divisive rhetoric. The economic struggles are very real, and they're fueling a lot of anger and frustration.
Exactly. And the fact that some of these voters are now regretting their decision suggests that the promises made weren't sustainable or didn't deliver real benefits. UBI offers a more direct and consistent form of economic support.
But what about the argument that Trump's policies, like the tariff rollbacks, are actually helping to ease inflation? Doesn't that undermine the case for UBI, since it's supposed to address economic hardship?
The tariff rollbacks are a temporary fix at best, and they don't address the underlying structural issues that are driving inequality. Plus, there's always the risk of further inflationary pressures down the line. UBI is a more long-term and sustainable solution.
And even if inflation is temporarily easing, it doesn't mean that everyone is benefiting equally. The wealthy are still doing better than ever, while many working class families are still struggling to make ends meet. UBI would provide a much needed boost to those who need it most.
Okay, but let's talk about something else I saw. There was a piece about arrests in Tennessee related to immigration enforcement. How does UBI factor into all of that? It seems like a completely separate issue.
It's connected. When you create a climate of fear and insecurity, particularly in immigrant communities, it has a ripple effect on the entire economy. People are afraid to work, to spend money, to invest in their communities.
Exactly. And UBI could provide a safety net for these vulnerable populations, mitigating the fear and instability caused by these raids. It could allow them to continue working and contributing to the economy, even in the face of adversity.
But wouldn't that just encourage more illegal immigration? If people know they can get a UBI, won't they be more likely to come here illegally?
That's a complex question. Some argue that UBI should be restricted to citizens and legal residents. Others argue that it should be extended to everyone, regardless of their immigration status. There are valid arguments on both sides.
Ultimately, I think we need to focus on creating a humane and just immigration system, one that recognizes the contributions of immigrants to our society. And UBI could be a part of that system, providing a basic level of economic security for everyone, regardless of their background.
All right, but let's get back to financial literacy. You guys are talking about teaching people how to invest and start businesses. But what about the basics, like how to balance a checkbook or avoid credit card debt? Are we even covering that stuff?
That's absolutely essential. We need to start with the fundamentals, budgeting, saving, debt management. Then we can move on to more advanced topics like investing and entrepreneurship. It's a building block approach.
And it needs to be age appropriate. You can start teaching kids about the value of money and the importance of saving at a very young age. And as they get older, you can introduce more complex concepts like credit and investing.
Okay, but who's going to teach this stuff? Teachers are already overworked and underpaid. Are we going to add another responsibility to their plate?
We need to invest in training and resources for teachers. And we can also partner with community organizations, financial institutions, and volunteers to provide financial literacy education. It's a collective effort.
And we need to make it engaging and relevant. No one wants to sit through a boring lecture about budgeting. We need to use real-world examples, interactive simulations, and gamified learning to make it fun and engaging.
Gamified learning. Sounds like a gimmick to me. People need to learn the hard way, by making mistakes and learning from them.
While there's value in learning from experience, not everyone can afford to make financial mistakes. Gamification can provide a safe space to experiment and learn without real-world consequences. It can also make learning more accessible and enjoyable.
Exactly. It's about empowering people to take control of their finances and make informed decisions. And UBI can be a catalyst for that, providing the financial security and the motivation to learn and grow.
So let's say we actually implement this UBI thing and everyone's getting this free money. What about the people who are already financially savvy? Are they just going to sit back and watch everyone else catch up?
Hopefully, they'll use their knowledge and resources to help others. Financial literacy is not a zero-sum game. The more people who are financially literate, the better it is for everyone.
And think about the potential for innovation in the financial sector. With more people having access to basic financial services, we could see the development of new and innovative products and services that cater to their needs.
All right, but what about the scammers and the predators who are going to try to take advantage of people? Are we just going to leave them to prey on the vulnerable?
We need strong consumer protection laws and regulations to protect people from fraud and abuse. And we need to educate people about how to identify and avoid scams. It's an ongoing battle.
Exactly. And we need to hold these scammers accountable. We need to prosecute them to the fullest extent of the law and send a clear message that this kind of behavior will not be tolerated.
So you're saying that UBI is going to solve all our problems? End poverty, promote equality, unleash innovation, and protect people from scams? Sounds too good to be true.
No, we're not saying that UBI is a silver bullet. It's just one piece of the puzzle. We still need to address other issues like healthcare, education, and housing. But it's a significant piece, and it could make a real difference in people's lives.
Exactly. It's about creating a more just and equitable society for everyone. And UBI, combined with financial literacy education and strong consumer protections, could be a powerful tool for achieving that goal.
Okay, I'm still not convinced. But I'm willing to keep an open mind. And I appreciate you guys taking the time to explain your perspectives.
Thanks, Otto. We appreciate your skepticism and your willingness to engage in a constructive conversation. It's important to have these debates.
Yeah, thanks, Otto. You keep us honest, and hopefully we've given our listeners something to think about. The future of income is a complex issue, but it's one that we need to grapple with if we want to create a better world for everyone.
Absolutely. It's not just about handing out money. It's about empowering people to build better lives for themselves and their communities.
All right. I still think there's a lot of pie in the sky thinking here, but I admit you've made me think. And thinking is never a bad thing, even if it leads to more questions than answers.
That's the spirit. And remember, the conversation doesn't end here. Keep asking questions, keep exploring new ideas, and keep working towards a more just and equitable future.
Well, that's about all the time we have for today. Thanks for tuning in to UBI Unplugged. We'll be back next week with another deep dive into the world of universal basic income.
Thanks, everyone. And remember, the future is unwritten. Let's write it together.
Yeah, whatever. Just try to keep it real, folks. See ya.
Before we wrap up entirely, I wanted to bring up one more article that caught my eye. It's about how some Gulf states might be influencing U.S. foreign policy in the Middle East. How do things like that affect the whole UBI conversation, if at all?
Oh, great. More geopolitical intrigue. How doesn't that stuff affect everything? If foreign powers are pulling strings, then any grand economic plan we come up with here could be completely undermined by outside forces. It's depressing, really.
It's definitely a reminder that economic policy doesn't exist in a vacuum. International relations, trade agreements, even conflicts can all have a significant impact. If we're serious about UBI, we need to be aware of these external factors and how they might affect its implementation and sustainability.
Exactly. If the US is constantly embroiled in foreign conflicts or beholden to the interests of other countries, it makes it that much harder to invest in domestic programs like UBI. We need to prioritize the needs of our own citizens and ensure that our foreign policy aligns with our economic goals.
So you're saying we need to be less of a global policeman and more focused on taking care of our own backyard. That sounds almost isolationist.
Not necessarily isolationist, but more strategic. We can still be engaged in the world, but we need to be smarter about it. We need to prioritize diplomacy and cooperation over military intervention. And we need to ensure that our economic policies benefit all Americans, not just a select few.
And that means being more critical of the influence of foreign powers on our political system. We need to be transparent about who's lobbying our politicians and who's funding our elections. The more transparent we are, the better equipped we'll be to make decisions that are in the best interests of the American people.
Okay, I'm starting to see the connection. If we're constantly spending trillions of dollars on wars and foreign aid, that's money that could be going towards UBI or other domestic programs. So, a more responsible foreign policy could actually make UBI more feasible.
Absolutely. It's about aligning our values and our priorities. If we believe that everyone deserves a basic level of economic security, then we need to make the necessary investments to achieve that goal. And that includes rethinking our approach to foreign policy.
And it also means being more mindful of the impact of our trade policies on American workers. We need to ensure that trade agreements are fair and that they protect American jobs. Otherwise, UBI could end up being a band-aid solution to a problem that's being exacerbated by our own trade policies.
So, it's all connected. Foreign policy, trade policy, economic policy. It's all one big tangled web. Makes you wonder if there's any way to actually fix anything.
It's daunting, but not impossible. We just need to be willing to think systemically and to address the root causes of our problems. And UBI, as part of a broader package of reforms, could be a powerful tool for creating a more just and sustainable economy.
All right, that really is all the time we have for today. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next week on UBI Unplugged.
Peace out, everyone. Keep fighting the good fight.
Don't get your hopes up too high. Bye.